gamers, this is part 2 of my solar system build, and I just wanted to tell you about what all things that I've done to it since the last video, and I wanted to run through some tools that I have laid out and some products that I have laid out that'll help you along and make things a little bit easier and help you kind of know what to buy when you go to buy your products. I'm not an Amazon affiliate, so I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I went on there and purchased this stuff with my own money. Now, Redodo or Redudu or whatever you want to call it, it's a Chinese company. They sent me out this battery to do some testing on, and can't wait to try it out. It looks like a really nice quality battery. I've seen some other YouTubers review this battery, and it seems like it's of good quality. You already seen in the last video that I had my power inverter from Samlex mounted right here, and the Bouge RV charge controller mounted right there. And then I mounted the fans here in the back, so they're blowing across the heat sinks in the very back. And then I kind of left off right there. So next, I wanted to show you the other components to the solar system and why I chose those components and just why I mounted them, where I did, and this, that, and the other. So first things first, if you come over here, you have a resettable circuit breaker. Now, I know it's tempting. Everybody gets on Amazon, and I see a lot of YouTubers doing these solar builds, and they'll get on there and buy those 3 resettable circuit breakers for $25 on Amazon. And I'm guilty of it too. I've looked at them, and it's very tempting to want to save, some money instead of buying the Blue Sea Systems circuit breakers. But I'll go ahead and tell you, be warned, if you cheap out and you buy those cheap circuit breakers, there's a chance you can start a fire, burn your system down, burn your house down, burn your RV down, your boat down, whatever it is, whatever you get it hooked to. So don't cheap out. Buy a reputable company. Stay away from those Chinese brands when it comes to the circuit breakers. If you don't believe me, check on Amazon, read through the reviews. I'm not talking about the 5-star reviews. Go down and check out some of the pictures, like the 1-star, 2-star reviews. Check out some of the pictures. I've seen a lot of pictures on there where the wiring will catch on fire, and that's what these circuit breakers and fuses are designed to protect, is your wiring. And in case of a short circuit, you don't burn your wiring down, and if the wiring didn't have a fuse on it, it would get hot, it could catch this board on fire, and catch everything on fire. So do not cheap out on these resettable circuit breakers. The one I'm using is a Blue Sea Systems copper Bussmann 285 series circuit breaker. It's a 50 amp, and this is a 40 amp charge controller. I figured I would be safe there. And next, I'm going to be using the Blue Sea Systems battery disconnect switch. The reason I chose those is I know that company. It's a reputable brand, and plus I was at my local Walmart, and I know you guys are going to be pissed off at me, but I bought every one of these that I could find in the Chattanooga, Cleveland, Tennessee area. I must have bought probably 15 of these. I got them for $9 at Walmart on clearance, so check your Walmart, wherever you might live. They might have these on clearance right now. These are normally, it says $24.49, but they're actually more than that at some Walmarts. I've seen them as high as like $29. So that's a really good deal. These things are really high quality, and it's with all of the Blue Sea Systems products. And I'm not trying to sell you on it, but I just know from experience, all the plastic that they're made out of is very high quality. They're not flimsy. They're not going to break when you screw them down, and it's just good quality stuff. And what that battery disconnect does, it allows you to turn it on or off your power coming from your battery to your inverter and to the rest of your system. So, that allows you to be able to cut it off, cut the power off in case you wanted to work on something. If you needed to turn it off to, change out a wire or anything like that, that just provides you a way to shut everything down. Now, it's not going to shut down the power coming into the charge controller. And third is an inline fuse holder. And again, this is a Blue Sea Systems, and you know, it is a really nice fuse holder. The reason I chose this one is because this cart, while it might come in and out of the house, most of the time, you know, when it's not being in use, it's going to be in the garage. And so let's say, you know, you're in your garage and you knock over some gasoline or something stupid happens, and you know, just happen to pop a fuse. If you do, you're going to be blown to the moon along with your house. And you know, because you know, all those fumes go real low to the ground and they're heavy, and this could be your ignition source right here. And the reason I chose this one is because you can see right here, it's got these little latches that holds this cover on. And these, normally when you buy a cheap one for like $10, these aren't worth a damn. They break so easy, and these little latches just hold it on nice and tight. And it's got a little keeper, so you know, this ain't gonna fall off and you step on it or something like that. And it's also very, very durable. Man, the plastic on this is really thick. You're not gonna find this for no $10 from another brand. Trust me, I've looked, and these are really high quality. And also, the terminals on this fuse holder are all stainless steel. The terminals on the resettable circuit breaker are stainless steel, so they're not going to corrode. You could use these in a marine environment. You could use them, you know, in your RV or whatever. And so these are just high quality pieces. But like I was saying, let's say you did have a spark and you had your fuse in here, and let's just say it had to, it blowed or something, and you created a spark. It's going to be self-contained in this housing. All right, inside this housing right here, there is a little groove, and inside that groove is an O-ring. And once you close this up, well, you would put your fuse in there first, get everything wired up, and once you close this up, if you was to pop a fuse or blow a fuse, there's going to be no way for that spark to ignite any kind of flammables that might go on the ground. And like I said, this is going to be mounted right on top of the battery and as close to the battery as possible. Now, I see a lot of YouTubers mounting the fuse at several different locations, and I've always been told that you want to mount the fuse as close to the battery as possible. And a lot of places tell you within 7 inches of the battery. And that only makes sense because this is your power source, and your power is coming out of here. And if there was a short, you want to stop all the power from getting up through that wire and burning it down. Let's just say your short was up here and you didn't have a fuse, but way up here, that wire could get really hot and it could burn all that wire from here to there. If you mount it within 7 inches of your battery, you know, there's really nothing that's going to happen between those first couple of inches of wire. I mean, it's not going to move around. I'm going to put a little Velcro on that so it can't move. All right, the next topic that I wanted to touch on is the wiring. And you can see that I've kept my wire runs nice and short, and I've oversized the wire. I see a lot of YouTubers just using the wrong wire. It's not big enough, or it's not oxygen-free copper. They'll use copper-clad aluminum. It's not a good conductor of electricity. Plus, you know, it gets hot and cold, and you know, it heat cycles, and you know, it can cause your terminal lugs to come loose over time from, you know, just heat cycling. And you don't want those to come loose because it can you know, create an unsafe connection. And the whole name of the game is you want a good tight connection on all your wires. You do not want to put any dielectric grease on any of the connectors. I don't care what anybody says. Do not put any kind of dielectric grease inside the wire lug and then slide the wire in there and crimp it, or solder it. Do not solder the lugs. I repeat, do not put dielectric grease because it is not a conductor of electricity. It will actually hinder your connection, and you know, it's just not good for it. Now you can, after you make all your connections and you want to take a little dielectric grease and rub on top of the copper connectors, you can do that. You know, it'll just help prevent corrosion on the outside of the connectors, but don't ever put any kind of grease around where, you know, the battery connects to that copper lug, because, you know, it will not get a good connection there. Now there is a way to get around not using that dielectric grease and still have corrosion protection, and you can buy tinned cable lugs. And what they do is they have a tin on them that protects them and keeps them from oxidizing. But, you know, you would only need something like that, you know, if you're using this for a marine application where it might get wet or be exposed to elements or salt water or something like that. So I don't use anything on there, and I just think that is going to be the best and give you the best connection. Also, you know, like I said, it's important to keep your wire runs to a minimum length. That way, you know, you'll have less resistance and, you know, less heat and all that. And, you know, if you oversize those wires, you know, it just helps you out in the future in case you want to upgrade your inverter. And, you know, that way you're protected. You'll be running a larger wire, and, you know, why keep buying wire over and over, you know, and why keep, you know, just going cheap on the wire. You know, just buy good wire the first time. I recommend the New Concepts wire. It's amazing stuff. This is what I'm using here. I mean, you can see this is oxygen-free copper, and if it looks silver to you, it's because it is tinned. So the reason I have been using this New Concepts wire, this here is the Colossus Flex cable. And the reason I've used this is because I've been using it for years, and it has done flawless. There's no corrosion on it because the wire is tinned. It gets good conductivity because it's 100% oxygen-free copper, and it's really good quality, and it has a good bend to it. You know, it's not real stiff like a lot of wire where you can't bend it. Some welding wire is really stiff. And just to show you how flexible it is, look at these bends right here. You wouldn't be able to do that with some of the wires, the other wires that I've used in the past. I mean, look at that. That's a 90-degree bend. And, you know, this stuff is just amazing. It is expensive, but for no more than what I had to use here, I might have had 3 feet of wire, and, you know, it's about $4.75 a foot, and you can buy it on Amazon, or you can buy it from New Concepts. I'll put their website in the description down below so you can find them. But anyways, the one thing that I do like about this wire is if you look right here, this is 0 gauge, and I had to make a little notes right here, but it says in this 0 gauge wire that there's 5,145 strands of copper wire in this, and so it's rated at 375 amps. This system here, never ever see that, so it is way overrated for the system that I have. Now, as far as the wiring for the charge controller, I'm still using the New Concepts. The charge controller will accept a 6 gauge wire, but this is an 8 gauge. I didn't see that New Concepts made a 6 gauge, but they make an 8 gauge that is, you know, really thick. It's a lot thicker than a lot of your wires, and I'll go ahead and tell you, be careful when buying wiring on Amazon, because most of the wire that you'll find on Amazon is going to be copper clad aluminum, or it'll say CCA. Always look for OFC, oxygen free copper. And you know, if you're looking for something for the marine environment, make sure that it's tinned. But like I said, I don't deal with any other wiring company just because I've been so satisfied. I know whenever I get this stuff, I know what I'm getting. And this stuff here, like I said, is the 8 gauge, and this stuff runs about 80 cents a foot, and it has 805 strands of wire inside each piece. And then it says right here that it's rated at 60 amps at 20 feet. I don't think you'll find a better wire that can carry that much power, and so I'm not going to use very much of it. I might even probably won't even use 1.5 feet of this to wire up that charge controller. And so anyways, I just buy a bunch, and so I have it for projects. And when it comes to stripping this heavy gauge wire, you know, you can use it with a just a razor blade. You can strip it. You got to be careful not to cut into the strands. You don't want to, you know, nick any and have them fall off, you know. But if you do, it's not a big deal. Again, you're oversizing the wiring. So, you know, if you do have 2 or 3 that fall off, it's not a big deal. But something to make it a little bit easier to strip the wiring is this right here. This is from Jonard Tools. This is a round cable stripper. And, you know, this is their model CST 1900. And this right here will strip from 3/16 all the way up to 1 1/8 inches in diameter. And what you do is take and you push your thumb up, and then you slide the wire in, and then you let it down, and then it cuts the jacket on that wire. Now, I will say on the New Concepts wire, the jacket is real soft, and since it's so soft and such a flexible wire, it is a little difficult to cut the New Concepts wire, but just standard wire that's a little bit stiffer of a jacket, this thing is the bomb. I mean, it works great. It cuts the wire, and it makes it a lot faster and easier when stripping. With the New Concepts wire, you have to kind of finesse it a little bit. What I like to do, since it pushes in and deforms the wire, I try to hold both sides of it like this and hold it with my stomach and just twist the wire. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. Now, I have not mastered this tool yet. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can do this one a lot better than me, but I'm still learning on this one. But once you twist it, the jacket will come off, and you can see right here, you can see that it's cut that jacket, and it didn't cut any of the wiring. I wanted to show you how this works, and it has a little cutter right on the inside there. They do make replacement blades, and it's adjustable. What you do is you just turn this little knob right here. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but there's a little adjuster, and you turn it to the left, which is counterclockwise, and that lowers the blade. Turn it clockwise, and it raises the blade. Now, when I talk about blade, the blade is very, very tiny. It's less than, I don't know, probably about 1/8 of an inch maybe. And that little blade is super sharp, and it really helps cutting that jacket off. Now, I do still use a razor knife sometimes to finish it off, and this works great because, you know, you've always got that sharp edge. You need a new blade, just break this off, and you got a nice sharp new edge on there to cut it. And, you know, if you're careful, you can easily use a razor blade. A lot of YouTubers say you got to have the fancy tools to do it with. You don't have to have it. If you're on a budget, I understand. And I've been without, you know, fancy tools before. So, you know, you can easily use a razor knife. So my girlfriend asked me a few minutes ago, she said, so how are you going to get that big wire into that cable lug and get it cramped and all that? And I said, it's easy. Let me show you. What you want to do is take a zip tie. Don't put it on the end where it would normally go and fasten it and lock it in place. Put it on backwards. Put it on backwards so you can make it adjustable, and you can undo it. Okay? Put it on there like that. And then what you want to do is, I've already stripped this wire. You can see that I've cut the jacket with that Jonard wire stripper that I just showed you. And you can see that when I'm not on camera trying to do it and I'm focused, I can actually get in there and do a good job. And you see that there was only like one or two little wires that got cut. No big deal. Well, when you pull that jacket off, you can see how clean of a cut that is. But what you want to do is take the zip tie and you put it on the wire just like this, and you slide it on down close to the edge, and then you take your zip tie and you pull it tight. You make a little noose for those wires. And then you take your cable lug, and it's probably going to be hard for me to do this without me being able to get down there and concentrate, but you just slide it up on there just like that. Then you just pull that zip tie out of the way, and then you just push that copper lug on there. And then I missed one, it looks like. Yeah, one little wire. But I go back and I cut those off, and then I put my heat shrink tubing over that after I crimp it. And I don't use any kind of special crimper. Now I have hydraulic crimpers. I have some of the compression crimpers, but I prefer just the old mechanical type crimper where you put the lug in there and hit it with a hammer. It just is fast, it's easy, and it makes a hell of a connection. And you know, I've never had one of these come loose, so you know, it just works for me. This is a Temco brand. I did buy it on Amazon, and it works great. So now I'm going to show you how to crimp it and heat shrink it and all that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's a very simple process. There's a lot of YouTube videos on how to do this. But what you want to do is when you're got everything set up, it's a good idea to go ahead and just put your cable lugs on everything and you know, point them in the direction of where the wire is going to go. That will help you mock it all up, and it'll make it very simple for you to get everything wired up correctly. So there's less mistakes, and you're not wasting materials and wire and cable lugs by crimping on the wrong ones and the, you know, different orientation. So with that being said, I have the disconnect switch here, and I know that this wire is going to fit on there just like that, and it's going to be mounted up in there just like that. So I'm going to set this aside, and we're just going to pretend here that the wire is going to be right there, and then this wire down here that's going to hook to the battery, it's going to be needing to lay flat just like this. So I'm going to take my marker, and I recommend using a silver marker. It just shows up a little bit better. And I'm going to put a little mark on the wire and a little mark on the cable lug. And I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but it's just an orientation mark. The reason I put that on there is so when I go to crimp it, that it's not misaligned like this, because it's not going to lay flat and it's going to bind up. You don't want to break these off, and you definitely don't want to bind these up here on your inverter and have those break off. So that's why I make that mark on there. All right, I'm going to show you guys how to crimp the wire. What you do is you raise up the little spring-loaded piece. You set your wire in there, and what you want to do is make sure that your marks are aligned on the wire and the crimp. So you're mounting it up where it needs to be, and then you want to push in on the wire, and the crimp kind of holds itself in place from the little crimper here, and then you take and you strike this with a hammer, and you have to do it a couple times. And after you strike it a couple times, you can see that it's bent that copper lug in, and you can see my marks are completely lined up, and you can see that it's crimped in here on the bottom. It's like a V shape, and then here on the top it's got like a plus sign right there. And you know, if you're not sure if you got it crimped good enough, you can always open this back up, set it in there, and hit it a couple more times. Just don't go real crazy. But you can see that is a nice strong crimp. It ain't going anywhere. Next, I'm going to show you how to use heat shrink tubing. Very simple. I like using the heat shrink tubing that has adhesive in it. When it gets warm or hot, you know, it leaks out this adhesive, and it just completely seals up and makes a waterproof connection for your crimp there. And you know, it seals up against that wire. So you know, this is just an awesome way to seal out the elements and make a nice connection. And if for some reason this crimp was to come off, you know, this can help it stay put a little bit once you put that on there and it shrinks up around it. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you, there's different ways of crimping, or I'm sorry, there's different ways of heating heat shrink tubing up. And my preferred method is not with a cigarette lighter or using a torch, because I tend to get too close to it and discolor the heat shrink tubing. And I don't like doing that. I don't think it looks very professional, number one. But number two, I don't want to have any kind of discolored heat shrink tubing, because that's going to make me think that the wiring's got too hot and it's melted something. So I always use a heat gun. Now, heat guns are very cheap. They're $10 at Harbor Freight. That's the best way that I've found to use this heat shrink tubing. And also, remember when you put this heat shrink tubing on, that you put it just a little bit closer than what you think that it should go. But just simply because when it shrinks down, it's going to shrink just a little bit, and it's going to make that connection. I'm going to show you real quick just how it works. I've got a heat gun here. I'm going to put it on level 2 setting. I'm going to get my heat shrink, and you can see that I've overlapped it just a little bit so it goes down to the bottom where it's flat, just barely on that flat surface. You don't want it way over here on where your connection is going to be. You just want it just a little bit over, so whenever it shrinks up, it's just going down the slope. So I'm going to show you exactly just how fast this stuff works. And try to rotate it around a little bit so you don't get one area too hot. And here in a second, you'll see the adhesive start oozing out of the heat shrink. And keep in mind, not every heat shrink tubing is created equal. Some has the adhesive in it and some doesn't. Like I said, I prefer the one that has the adhesive in it. I think it's a better seal, and I just prefer that kind. And I'll show you what brand here in a second that I use. And, you know, if you don't have a shop or anything, I've found that just working here in your kitchen and just using your stove to set the heat gun over on, it's probably your safest bet, because that thing gets really freaking hot. But you can see right here, there is some glue that's oozed out around that heat shrink tubing. And that just makes a really amazing seal. And then right here is the main spot you want to pay attention to. And that is, you know, you can see that it didn't really get on that flat area, because you want every bit of that flat surface area to make that good connection, and you don't want that heat shrink tubing to get in your way. And you can see that right there is absolutely perfect. And so now when it's time to hook everything up, you can see that this wire here is going to go to my battery post, and this wire is going to fit just like that, and it's going to lay down flat and look nice and neat. And also, you know, I know a lot of people cheap out and they use different color heat shrink. You know, if you only just have black, you know, you can do that. But for me, you know, I don't want to do something goofy and actually put black heat shrink on a red wire, and then for some reason have a brain fart thinking that's a negative wire or something, and, you know, accidentally do something stupid and short circuit, you know, the two wires together. Just, you know, I guess it's a mental thing for me. So I always make sure that I have red and black heat shrink. It just it just makes it a little bit easier. I try to keep all the red on the red wire, all the black on the black wire, plus it looks nicer. So I have used the Wi-Fi, and like I said, it comes in all the different sizes from an 1/8 all the way up to 1 inch. So a lot of times when you work with this 0 gauge wire here, they only give you just like 5 pieces of the 3/4, and you get 5 pieces of black and 5 pieces of red, and that don't go very far. So what I like to do is buy this XHT, I believe that is, no, I'm sorry, XHF, and I get this on Amazon, and you can buy it in the black and the red, and it comes in 4-foot sections, and it's like $7 or $8. And the drawback to this is you have to use scissors and measure it and cut your own pieces. Now it does cut very easy, but you know, you get a lot more for your money, you know, if you're needing these big thick pieces like I do, the 3/8 or the 3/4 pieces. So I'll go ahead and put a link for both of these down in the description as well. Again, I'm not an Amazon affiliate, don't make anything on this. This is just my own money that I found that these products, and they work great, so I wanted to pass them on. So I told you about the wiring and some tools and all this. Now, when it comes to your cable lugs, you know, I have seen some really cheap ones on Amazon. And again, do not cheap out on these cable lugs. It's pretty much the same thing as, you know, the Blue Sea Systems components that I was telling you about at the beginning of the video. You can cheap out and you can buy some cheaper stuff, but you're putting your system at risk. You know, if you've got these some really cheap cable lugs, then you know they might, you know, not be rated for the high enough amps to be able to use on something like this, or they're probably just really flimsy, or you know, they're just, you know, bad quality. And so there is a ton of cable lugs that has flooded the market on Amazon and eBay and all that. And so, you know, I would be very careful about who you buy from on there. And I just took a chance. I read a bunch of reviews, looked at a bunch of pictures on Amazon and some of the forums for solar stuff. I've seen some guys using these here, and I got these from Amazon, bought them with my own money. Again, I'm not an affiliate. Don't care if you buy them. I don't care where you get them. I mean, seriously, I'm just trying to help you guys. This is from Celterm. I think that's how you say that. S-E-L-T-E-R-M, Celterm. And I got all of these from that same company. And I buy them in quantity of 10 and 15 because it comes out to be a little bit cheaper. Now, upon my experience of using these, they're really high quality terminals. And what I mean by that is, you know, they're really thick. Let me pull one out and show it to you. You can see that right in here, the copper is really thick, and they are marked. They've got that UL rating on there, and you can see how thick they are here on the back, and they're flared. So once they're flared, it makes them a lot easier to get that wiring in there. And you know, you have to hit them pretty good with a crimper. You got to hit them with that crimper pretty hard with a hammer to crip these. So they are very solid. Now, again, you can see how thick that is. A lot of those cheap ones you buy on Amazon are going to be flimsy, and they're going to crush too easy and deform way too easy, and you know, they're not going to be a good quality. Now, if you don't want to buy them from Amazon, and I got these years ago at Tractor Supply for like 55 cents for 2 of them. So that was really cheap, but the holes was too big. This is more for like a welder or something like that, but I figured one day I would probably use them, and so I bought them for 50 cents. I've held on to them for probably 10 years, and you know, I'm a pack rat when it comes to that kind of stuff. I can't pass the deal. But these here, they have some similar to this that has the appropriate size ring at Tractor Supply, and I seen them at 3 different sections of the store. They had some over there near the welders. They had some back there in the automotive section around like the trailer wiring and all that kind of stuff. and then I seen them somewhere else. You'll just have to look around in Tractor Supply, but they were in 3 different locations. And so if there's a Tractor Supply nearby, or maybe an automotive store might have them or something like that, an AutoZone, I'm not sure if they carry them, but you know, if you search around, you can find them. But I will tell you, you will pay dearly for them. You know, usually if you find them in a big box store, they're going to be really marked up. If I found out that if I buy them from Amazon, they're a little bit cheaper. And lastly, just wanted to touch on this, and I'll cut this video because I'm going on like 30 minutes here. I'm sorry to keep you guys so long, but there's a lot of information. When you're building a solar system, different components call for different size lugs. And so this one here is a 3/8 hole, and this one right here is for a 1/4 inch hole. What I have found that, especially with these here, I have found that a lot of times when you buy cable lugs, they're a little bit loose, even though that's the correct size. I found that the cable lug is a little bit loose on different components that you go to hook up. Like, for instance, the stud right here on this resettable circuit breaker is a 1/4 inch stud. So I have to use these cable lugs here with that small little hole right there. And you know, with the shunt here, it uses a huge, I believe it is a 7/16 or a 3/8 bolt. I mean, it is a big one. And so I have found out with my experience that it's better for me anyways to buy the ones that have the 1/4 inch hole, and then take a drill bit and drill them out to the appropriate size. That way you don't have to buy a bunch of these and a bunch of these and a bunch of these to fit all the different types of hardware that you're going to be hooking up. I found that it's just so much better to drill them out, and I feel like that it's a lot tighter of a connection instead of it being so loose when you go to screw everything on. I feel like it just fits a lot better. The way that I drill them out is I'll take one of these 1/4 inch ones, and I just take a pair of small vice grips, and I clamp on right here at the side, just like this right here. And then I take a drill bit, and I just hold it just like this and drill it out to the appropriate size. And then after you're done, you're left with a little bit of a burr on the top and bottom, and then I just take some sandpaper and I scuff that and get that burr off there, and it makes a nice, good connection. Another tip for you is, before you put all your wires on there and you tighten everything down, make sure there's no burrs on there. Make sure everything's nice and flat, so when you secure these cable lugs down to the battery post or to the inverter or the charge controller or wherever, that it's making good contact. Also, another tip, and a lot of people are probably not gonna say this in the videos, and a lot of you might say, oh, that's stupid, it ain't gonna make no difference. But what I like to do is take some rubbing alcohol, and I'll rub rubbing alcohol on the connectors after I clean them with some little fine sandpaper, just to polish them up. I take and wipe them down with rubbing alcohol. What that does is gets rid of all the grease and oils on your fingers and takes it off those connectors. So, you know, you're going to get a good connection, and you're not going to get any kind of resistance from that. Again, it's pretty much like the dielectric grease. It doesn't conduct electricity, and that little bit of oil or grease can, you know, it's not going to stop the connection, but it's not going to be as good of a connection if you get greasy fingers and all that. When you're shopping around on Amazon, be smart, be savvy. I bought this Blue Sea Systems 200 amp AMG Mega Fuse from Blue Sea Systems on Amazon, and this thing cost me $10 for one fuse. And I was like, man, that's expensive. But, you know, it's that Mega Fuse, and I didn't know which other ones would fit in this fuse holder, so I just wanted to get the Blue Sea Systems one, and to make sure that it actually fit. I didn't want to have to deal return and all that kind of crap. So I just was like, it's an extra $5. What's $5? But the next time I needed one, I went to order the next fuse, and this one is from Bussmann. And you can see that this is the exact same fuse that Blue Sea Systems sells, but it's $5 and some change versus $10 on this one. It's the same exact fuse. I'll pull it out so you can see. You can see right here. That is the same fuse. So, you know, save you a little bit of money, save you like $5. And, you know, if you could buy an extra and just have it on hand in case you have one that blows. So, anyways, appreciate you guys watching this video. I hope this video was informative to you. I know I feel like I've been preaching for like 2 hours here, but you know, I hope this video helped somebody out and cleared up some, you know, questions that you might have had and showed you some tips and tricks. And so this is just part 2 of my solar system build. Stay tuned. Like and subscribe to my channel, and I've got several more videos coming out. And the next time I post a video, you'll see I'm a little bit further along, and I'm going to show you even more tools and more tips and tricks and how to set your system up. So again, please like and subscribe, help me out. And until next time, guys, have a good one. See ya.